With me is Connie, make sure I'm pronouncing your last name correctly, McCalister.
McCalister.
Connie McCalister. I met Connie a few years ago. And Connie is a member of the Port Angeles Church. And for quite a while she was, Brother Marshall, we want you to come over to Port Angeles Church. We want to have prison ministry start there. And so last year we went. Connie was incarcerated at one time. Connie, tell us what led to your incarceration.
My addiction to cocaine, which started at a very young age. And when crack cocaine came into the picture, completely devastated my life, my family. I lost everything. I had been a realtor with Century 21 for about 8 years at that time. My career was gone. So that's what let me in, was my addiction to drugs.
As Felita said last night, it took you places you didn't intend to go.
Oh, phew. Never knew they existed, okay, let alone going there. Yeah.
So you got caught, you were arrested, you were incarcerated, Washington Correctional Center for Women,
Yes.
which we call Purdy. How many years were you incarcerated?
A total of 6.
6 years?
Yeah, in and out.
In and out.
Yes, sir.
So tell us about that in and out.
Well, I would get caught selling drugs, usually, and I'd go in for a couple of years, learn how to do it better, or I picked up a habit with pills, too, in prison. I found out the guards brought in the most drugs. So, anyhow.
Yeah, so how many times were you incarcerated in Purdy?
4 times.
4 times.
Oh, and I always said I'd be back.
Yeah.
Always said I'd be back.
So whenever you were released, you would say to your friends there, I'll be back.
I'll be back.
I'll be back.
I had given up.
Yeah. And the last time you were released, you also said that to them, I'll be back.
Yes.
And while you were in prison at Purdy, did you attend any meetings whatsoever? Any religious services meetings?
I did.
Yeah?
Yes. A few of them, actually, because I've been searching through different religions for the right church from my teenage years.
Yeah.
And I heard about Seventh-day Adventists, and I went to that group in the prison. And from what the people said in that group, I knew this is not the church that I ever have to learn about being a part of.
Yeah, so Connie went to a group. She thought it was a Seventh-day Adventist group, and then in the end she discovered it's not really a Seventh-day Adventist group.
Yeah.
But you were released, the last time you were released from prison, what year was that?
2008.
2008. In 2008 you were released, and where did you go after you were released?
Oh, right back to the streets. I didn't ask to go to jail, so I didn't do anything to change really in jail. And I knew when I got out, nothing on the outside had changed either.
So you went back to the streets, and what were you doing?
Selling drugs.
Mm-hmm.
And using drugs.
Selling and using drugs. And again, what was the drug?
Cocaine.
Cocaine. Just one quick question, though. What age, how old were you when you first was exposed to drugs?
4.
4.
Mm-hmm.
4 years.
4 years old.
How were you exposed to drugs at 4 years old?
Well, because of my stepfather being a pedophile, heroin and cocaine were the best ways to keep me under control.
So he gave those to you?
Yes. I have never used heroin, though I could have. But cocaine is something that's been in my life ever since.
So you went back in 2008, Connie went back to the streets and began selling and using drugs.
Yes.
In Tacoma.
In Tacoma.
How did you get into Port Angeles?
Well, someone who I sold to regularly decided to move back home, which was Port Angeles. And when he found me, I had just been out probably a couple of weeks, and he asked me if I would come to his place for a weekend, just to chill, get away from Tacoma, just for the weekend. And I told him,
So you went.
yes.
And then what happened in Port Angeles?
Started selling crack cocaine. They didn't really know about that out there, or powder. So I started selling drugs.
So that was virgin territory for you.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Tell us what happened one day or night you were selling.
Oh, there was this guy who came in, and I loved it because even though he was in his addiction, the throes of it, he would still talk about God, and that no matter what he was doing, he knew God loved him. And this is something I always knew too, especially on the streets.
And he had a book in his hand. What was the name of that book?
Steps to Christ. And and I thought, wow, this looks good. Like it'd be nice to read. So I started reading it, and I kept reading it, and I kept reading it. And after a few days, I realized I wasn't using drugs. And so, sorry. And I haven't used drugs since. Thank you.
Reading the Steps to Christ. And this guy was said he was a member of the Adventist church, right?
Yes. And again, then that was more proof. That's the one church I don't need to know about, right? But I didn't know he was a Seventh-day Adventist at the time. After I finished reading, I said, well, who is this woman? Who is this woman? He said, well, I can take you to my church. And then when he told me it was Seventh-day Adventist, I thought, oh no, the cult. They don't even know the right day to go to church. Okay. So I went because of that book.
And you haven't stopped going since then.
And I haven't stopped going since.
Connie's first introduction to Seventh-day Adventism was selling drugs to an Adventist. God works in some strange ways.
Amen.
Connie is now a prison ministry volunteer, going back into the same prison,
I always
ministering in the same prison that she was released from.
Yes.
Last year, I had the opportunity and the pleasure of baptizing a lady in that prison. And when she shared her testimony, here's someone who was in there for murder. Family members are Catholics and telling her, no way, don't join the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Mm-hmm. And that lady in her testimony said, when I see what God did for Connie,
I always said I'd be back.
I decided that if he did that for Connie and changed Connie's life, he can do something for me too. Connie, continue to be a witness. And may God continue to bless you.
Thank you for the privilege.